And we're live, guys. Hey, welcome to another Life from the Attic with Ed's Retro Geek Out right here. I got my buddies, as always, with me. Got Grecofabulous right there. Below
Howdy.
me, I got NARC. And in the other corner, we have Blake Wright, the writer of the Toys That Time Forgot books. So, Blake, thanks so much for joining us today.
Yeah, man. No, thanks for having me. It's great.
Yeah. What have you been up to today? Everything going swell?
I was up to watching my football team get shellacked by Chicago, but yeah, no, it's doing good here. It's rainy here in Houston today, so we're not like the whole world isn't indoors currently, but we're indoors today for sure.
All right. Narc, how are you doing today, buddy?
Going good, man. It's rainy here. Today I'm in my garage because I have a house full of people and it's loud. So we'll see how this works out today. We'll see. We'll see.
It's always kind of tricky, right?
Yeah, always, man. That's life.
How's Greco doing?
Do you want me to talk about myself in the third person? Greco is great. I'm doing good. Constantly disappointing my fans and subscribers. I think the last time we all got together, I was promising that I would make a new content for my channel, and I still haven't delivered. So status quo over here.
Yeah, I've been trying that too. So I basically have an upload in like 3 weeks. And I mean, It's going great. I got so much free time, but yeah, channel wise, it's not going that great. But apart from that, I'm doing fine. The baby is doing well. And as we're on the subject of creating things, let's go right to our special guest. Because yes, an announcement to make as well. Maybe you've heard it already, but Volume 3 of Toys That Time Forgot is on the table to be created, right, Blake?
Yeah, it's about 60% written right now. I've sent the first 4 chapters to my layout guru, so he's already diving into the work there. The Kickstarter for it is planned for February, and I hesitate about that because there was just an announcement of another pop culture style book that's going to go to Kickstarter in February. So I'm a little concerned about some possible cannibalization of the fan base there. So I may end up pushing it to either late February or even early March. I'm not 100% sure yet. I may just go for it and say, hey, I was going to do it in February. I'll just do it in February and hope that if you build it, they will come, sort of thing. But right now, the wind got knocked out of my sails when I saw this other announcement that this was going to launch in February, on February 3rd, my birthday, no less. But
oh, really?
Yeah. So we'll figure it out. The book is definitely coming, though. There's no stopping that at this point.
Is this a bad time to announce my Kickstarter?
Yeah.
Yeah. The toys that we kind of remember.
That's right.
But I mean, the other 2 have done great, right, on Kickstarter?
Yeah, no, I mean, it's been wonderful. I mean, Kickstarter, I don't know if anybody here has done one, but what a nerve-wracking 30 days that is, man. You've got like, at least for a successful, even for a successful one, I mean, it was like 48 hours of total bliss because all of these people flood in at the beginning. And you're like, yeah, this is awesome. Look at all the support. And then you have 26 days of nothing. It's just steady climb. And then the last 24 hours is everyone else shows up. So it's like there's a 72-hour period, half, 2/3 at the beginning, 1/3 at the end, that's total pandemonium. But the grind in the middle is, oh goodness, it's hard. Sometimes it's heartbreaking.
So by the time you announce it on Kickstarter, is the book like 99% done, or is it still dependable on, I'm pretty good now it depends on the Kickstarter whether I'll finish it or not. Because
no,
for some projects, it is like that, you know?
Yeah, and that's never been the case. I was always going to finish them. The first book was finished when I went to Kickstarter. It was done.
Okay.
I was just ready. I was just looking for the money to get it produced. The second book was only about 60. I was about where I am now when I did the Kickstarter. And I told myself I wasn't going to do that again. That was because that took longer. It took longer to pull that one together than I had originally hoped. But this one is going to be as close to done as I can get it before. I at least want it to be in the proofer's hands because I've got a team of proofreaders that go through and try to catch all the mistakes. So if come February, March, whenever it is, I can, put on my Kickstarter video that the book is done and it's in the proofreader's hands. That's what I would like.
Okay. Awesome. So yeah, we got lots of people in chat already. Ryan, Carlos, let me know, guys, because I know some of you are from the Netherlands and stuff where you have already heard about these books, if you have one of those yourselves or not. Because in Texas, like the Dallas Vintage Toy Store, they have it still available, right?
Yeah, they have they have volume 2. They got a handful of copies because they backed the Kickstarter at the retailer level, I guess.
Oh, okay.
So cool. They got a handful of books, and they moved during the time I was going to ship all this stuff out, and so I was like, and I know Sean a little bit, the guy that runs that place. So I was like, well, I'll hold off because I want to send it to the right spot. And then COVID hit, and then everything else, and I totally vegged on getting them their damn books. And so literally it was just a few weeks ago, I had to go to Dallas for on a personal trip. So I actually took them their books, which is why they still have the copies that they have. But yeah, I think last time I looked, they had maybe 3 or 4 copies left. So if you're local to Dallas, you can run up and get one from them.
That's the toy store that has like the really cool Castle Grayskull entrance, right?
Right. Yeah.
Okay.
That's the entrance to their graded vintage hall, I guess it's called.
I'll go there so badly next time.
It's a nice spot. It's a nice spot. It's a nice spot to browse. It's too rich for my blood, but it's a nice spot to browse.
But you kill toys as well, right? Or
not as much as I used to. I was a huge collector back in the 90s. When Star Wars relaunched in 95, I was all in. I went back and I got all the vintage loose figures. I got the new stuff. And that was back when you could put together a loose vintage set of all the original Star Wars figures for about $1,000.
Wow.
Because I literally gave a dealer friend of mine $1,000 and said, put together a nice, complete set of Star Wars vintage figures. And he did it. Now you can't even buy like 3 of the last 17 for $1,000, it seems like.
And you got rid of them through the years? Or
yeah. I've come to realize,
like the shelf I usually see is like filled with books and a couple of collectibles.
Yeah, I do have a little knickknack shelf that I do have some stuff on. But over the time, over periods, and this will probably happen to what's here now too. Over time, I've come to realize that I am much more of a hunter. I like the thrill of the chase versus actually possessing the toy. I mean, there was a time where I bought a house 20-something years ago, and I bought it because it had a bonus room, which is just like you walk up the stairs and there's just this giant room.
Yeah.
You turn into a theater or whatever. That was my collection. And it was full to the brim with Star Wars for days. I had vintage, and then I started getting into toy lines that had very short runs. So I had vintage carded Tiger Sharks. I had vintage carded Knickerbocker Lord of the Rings. I had Buck Rogers and Battlestar Galactica and, all this stuff. But then, months and months would go by and I would never look at it. And so I ended up just saying, maybe I should just go ahead and pass these along to someone who'll maybe appreciate them a little more. I kick myself every once in a while. I was like, man, I wish I still had that. But at the end of the day, it really has become more. I'm a collector of, I enjoy the pursuit much more than actually possessing the thing. And now basically I tell people I collect stories. So that's what I do now.
No, I think you're in. Sorry, Ed, I was just saying. I think you're in like-minded company here. I think all of us are kind of in that same mind frame where, yeah, I mean, anybody can go out and buy, everything they want off eBay, and all of a sudden, you're an instant collector. But what's the fun in that? It's kind of an empty approach. So I think we're all in that same. I know I like to dig into people's attics and basements. Go to yard sales, ask, do you have any Transformers? And then all of a sudden you're in their house, because they didn't think they'd take it out, or, you go to flea markets and things like that. And it's definitely, like I said, collecting stories is the exact approach, at least that I like to take, because it always comes out of my mouth where I'm like, how did you end up with this? Or, and we get into kind of a discussion there. And it's definitely what keeps me going anyways. It's not the accumulation of stuff, but, finding these hidden treasures for the right price. Because I'm not a retail shopper by any means. It's fun to look at, but I'm not coming home with it.
Yeah.
And then just especially when I'm finding like things that are still sealed, and it's like, oh, my aunt cleared out a KB toy stores, Christmas of 1991. And we just held on to this for whatever reason, just the stories that go along with it. It's not only finding the toys that are hidden treasures, but kind of like the lore behind it as well that I enjoy.
Definitely. Yeah, me too. I mean, it's just about, the hunt. Owning it afterwards, it just goes on a shelf. And you do your research on what part of line it's from and how can you complete the line. But the most fun way to complete it is to just stumble upon it and find it for a really great price, I guess. We also had a couple questions already in, like, NARC, what's up with the backdrop? I think he's just trying to cover up his Pops collection, honestly.
Yeah, so ashamed that I'm covering it all up. No, I'm in my garage today, so we see how well that's working out. So, just toss that up there, just because.
Ryan is asking if any of us will be doing a Christmas special. I guess Greco is definitely going to do one, right?
I think if I release a video by Christmas time, it'll definitely be special.
Okay. I should I have to finish like a video I've been working on for so long, and then if it finishes for Christmas, I might do a Christmas special. How about you, NARC?
I think I'm gonna try to do a best of 2020. So not necessarily a Christmas, but for all the great figures that we got in 2020. Little display of that. Lots of good stuff came out this year.
Yeah. I might do one like best finds of this year, or like how 2020 began and then turned out to be for me. Something like that.
Yeah.
You're also active on social media like Facebook and your Instagram, Blake. So is there any like Christmassy related posts you're going to be adding?
I don't think so. I've been pretty sparing in doing. I did a video, a Facebook Live video that was like an AMA, kind of thing, and that worked. That went pretty well. So I'm not opposed to doing a handful of more of those. I don't think I'll do one for Christmas, but I admire you YouTube guys. I mean, to be able to just churn out the content, constantly, because once you start that, if you do stop it, you lose everybody, right? So I flirted with doing some YouTube stuff before, and it was just like, I don't want to go down that rabbit hole. So
it's a grind.
Kudos to you guys who can do it and keep it up. I mean, that's a full-time job, man.
Yeah, I don't know. I have a lot of stubborn subscribers that just won't take the hint that they're more into me than I'm into them.
I don't know. I've like ever since like my channel started taking off, I've been just shooting myself in the leg by taking 3 weeks off every month and a half. It's not great.
Right.
But it's just because like work is so exhausting as well. So it's usually just like, because like that's like the next thing I want to talk about. Like when I do a video, sometimes it's like 6 hours of work, sometimes it's 25 hours of work. How about a book? Because I mean, it's not something you write in like a couple weeks, I guess.
No, you're right. Basically, um, hang on, I lost you. Oh, there you are. The process, gets drug out over the course of several months. Occasionally, I'll get on a roll and spit out a lot of content over like a 2 week period, and then there'll be 3 weeks where I just can't put a single word on a page that I enjoy. So I have to
Okay.
walk away from that. And there are other obligations as well. So I have to work the book into when it fits with with my other work schedules. Cause I got a lot of things I have a lot of things going on around me usually. But I will say that, this book, the one I'm working on now, volume 3, has had more. There are more words involved this time around. There's a couple of very chunky stories that I want to make sure I do justice to, because they're just phenomenal. And I, to go out on the World Wide Web these days and type something in and see absolutely nothing on these particular subjects come up, well, then you're okay. Well, if I'm going to be the initial public outlet for this, I want to do it right. So, so I know that there's going to be a couple of pretty challenging chapters. I think I teased on social media a couple of days ago that I have basically, I think the longest chapter in any one of the books so far has been Turtles, which was in volume 2, and that was, I think, 16 pages. I've got a couple of 20 pagers working right now that aren't, that's not Turtles. It's actually, one line no one's ever heard of, and I've got 20 pages on it. So that's,
That's pretty awesome.
to give you an
I'm
idea.
always like searching for unproduced stuff to put in my videos.
Yeah.
And I don't want to like I end up a lot into like interviews even before, or like get links to like the book, and I'm always like I don't want to put stuff in that you already talked about. And then when I got the book, I was like, oh, he's spoken about so many stuff I've already featured in my videos, but it's just the same thing that gets recycled. Most of those stories are out there already, but you're really digging, going over to collectors, going over to people that work for the companies, I guess, and getting the story from them or the way they received it, together with like the packaging art or the prototype art and all that, which is awesome. I mean, I can't do that over here in Belgium, so
Yeah, no, it would be tough. And this book has been tough as it is because normally I would be out traveling and going to Los Angeles, going to New York, sitting down with these people, because I found it's much easier to go to them, at their invitation, of course, sit down, in their space, talk to them. Their comfort level is very high, and they'll just, you turn the tape recorder on and you let them go. And they just sit there, and before you know it, you've been sitting in their house for 3 hours, and they're just talking. Now, not everything's gold, but there are some nuggets in there worth mining usually. So this time around, I haven't been able to do that. It's been all phone. It's been all Zoom style calls like we're doing here.
Okay.
It's been, I haven't been able to see the prototypes in person and photograph them. I haven't been able to, see the drawings in person and scan them. Fortunately, I've built up enough of a reputation to where people are actually sending me these items through the mail, which I didn't encourage per se, but I certainly, I left that out there for them to choose at their discretion. If you would like, you can do this. I will photograph and scan, and I will send back to you. And I didn't think I'd get too many takers, truthfully, but I have, and it's been wonderful that I've built up enough trust or clout or whatever you want to call it, in the toy industry circles to where people would even entertain doing that. So right now in this room, you can't see it, but I'm surrounded by boxes of stuff that that I'm going to have to go through and photograph and scan and rebox and get back to their rightful owners.
I think I see like an unproduced toy right there.
Yes, you do.
At least it's a prototype.
I mean, it's sitting there over my shoulder. You want to know what that is? I can tell you.
If it's okay, yeah.
Yeah, I put it there for a reason.
Yeah.
That is a hard copy from a television show, a very short-lived television show that was produced by the Jim Henson Company called Brats of the Lost Nebula.
Okay.
It aired back in the 90s. Like I said, it was very short-lived, much more popular in Canada than it was in the States. I think the States only got maybe the first 3 or 4 episodes aired, and then they pulled it. Canada got all 13 of the original episodes, and actually was hungry for more because it was popular up there. And Hasbro had the toy license, and they prototyped the entire cast, including my friend over here. He's called The Shock, I think is his name. If you go, you can look it up on you can see clips on YouTube. I don't think you can watch full episodes. I think someone said that it landed on Roku not that long ago. I don't have Roku, so I can't watch them. But it's puppets, so it's Henson, so it's puppets. It's kind of anime influenced.
But they look more robotic.
Yeah, this guy is kind of part fleshy, part robot. There are some other guys that are kind of the premise of the story. Basically, there's these 5, I think, or 4 or 5 orphan aliens that all band together and are fighting this power that basically ravaged each of their homelands. So they've kind of gotten together to fight the bad guy, each of which basically separately, but has orphaned them, So I've talked with the guy that worked on the line at Hasbro. I talked to Dan Clark, who was the creator of the show. I talked to Matt Britton, who was actually the head of Henson Creature Shop when that show was filming. Got some good insight and got a box full of prototypes sent to me in the mail so I could photograph.
That's cool. Is it like, because you said now you've built a reputation, but you were already kind of known in the Toy Fair crowd. The first book, was that like also just hanging on the phone with people, or did you already get like invites to come and check out some prototypes? Yeah, or was the first book more of like you looking at known prototypes and talking about it without getting the stories beforehand?
Yeah, I mean, the internet's a wonderful source for a lot of information when it comes to unproduced toys. There's also I went into a buying frenzy on eBay of old Toy Fair catalogs.
Yeah,
which are also quite the resource for unproduced stuff. Sometimes that's the only photographs you'll ever see of that stuff. The good example there is the Tribes line from Hasbro from 1990. The only place you would have seen that, prior, I don't think there was a lot on the internet, but it was in that 1990 catalog.
I just got approximately 200 of these, and I think Lee's something else catalog.
Right.
But there was this guy in Belgium, like a really big Mego collector, and he just had all of these action figure digests and what is it called? Lee, the action figure toy, that thing. So he had them up for sale for like 50 cents each. And just had to go pick them up because, I mean, research wise, that's going to do wonders, obviously.
Yeah. Tomart's was actually really good, is a really good source for unproduced stuff, especially out of Kenner Hasbro, because they're in Ohio, or they were in Ohio, where Kenner was, and a lot of times they would take prototypes up to Dayton, which is where Tom Tumbush, the guy that was the publisher there, where his offices were. And I met with Tom once before he passed away, and trying to get him to open up his archive to me, because I wanted access to all his Toy Fair, because they would go to Toy Fair every year and snap 1,000, 2,000 photographs, and they only publish a dozen of them, or 2 dozen of them.
Indeed.
So,
I've been trying to look up Toy Fair pictures, but nobody has them.
Yeah, no, they're tough to come by, because especially when you're talking anything pre-digital camera, you're just hoping that they have 3x5s or there was no. I used to say there was nothing more exciting than for me to come across a big stack of Polaroids, because you're like, oh, this is like the whole, something from the 80s. And you're flipping through. I mean, they're crappy quality, but that's it. That's what you had.
Yeah.
So,
were there any juicy rumors or stories that they weren't substantiated enough, so you had to leave them on the cutting room floor? It's got to be hard, right, to kind of because we're talking about things that weren't produced, so that the evidence of their existence isn't always there. So I guess, how do you draw the line between reporting something new but also making sure it's factual?
Yeah, I mean, the thing to do there is you got to talk to as many people as you can, because you talk to 4 different people, you're going to get 4 different stories, but there will be common threads throughout them, and those are the ones I tend to pull on. When they all say at least 1 or 2 things the same, okay, you're pretty safe there. Let's use that as the jumping off point and see what else they can recall. Remember, and also you got to remember, if these guys were 30 years old making toys in the 80s, well, they're 70 now.
Yeah.
So, and one of the other pushes for me to do this is that we're going to lose these guys. We've already started losing these guys. So if you don't get a microphone in front of them, those stories are gone.
Yeah.
So, so that was another one of the incentives that I really was like, okay, well, I want to see this book, so I'm going to have to be the one that does it. I can string a couple. I mean, like I said, I've been a journalist. I went to college, have a journalism degree, and all that good stuff. So I can string some sentences together. So let's go. So that was the whole motivation, or one of the main motivations behind doing Volume 1, because it was a book I wanted to see, and I knew if I didn't do it pronto, some of this stuff was going to be lost to time.
So
yeah, and I know.
Maybe we'll talk about how it all started in just a sec, because we do have some questions. Like Tarv over here, our buddy, he's asking, what is the best way to order these books when you're based in Europe?
Yeah, that's a problem. And the reason why is the books are heavy. And me shipping them overseas, some places it costs more than the book itself. I've discussed.
Now, for me in Belgium, I ordered it to Big Bad Toy Store,
right?
And it was $50 with, I think, 20 or $30 thrown on top for shipping.
Okay, well, that's not
so. That's still reasonable.
Yeah,
It's not terribly bad.
I mean,
So
Big Bad has been a very constant proponent of both books. They've reordered volume 2 3 times. They currently have it in stock again, by the way. That just happened over the last couple of days. So if you're looking for volume 2, they may be the cheapest way to get it overseas. I've talked to some guys in the UK. There's a company called Bitmap Books. I don't know if anybody knows those. They do video game books over there, about possibly working out a deal to where they could distribute from London. But it's a lot of these companies want more than I'm willing to give when it comes to things like that. And if I was printing 5,000, 10,000 books, it would be one thing, but I'm not. So I've got a bit of a chip on my shoulder about letting someone in on what little profit I'm going to make off these. So and the other reason, people say, why aren't you on Amazon? Why aren't you on Amazon? Well, frankly, I haven't needed Amazon. Between Big Bad and selling them direct through, just through word of mouth or through social media or whatever, I've sold these books. I sold out of volume 1. Volume 2's 80% gone. So I haven't seen a need to do that. I have noticed recently that UPS has a cheaper shipping rate than USPS. So we did a little test run. We sent a book to Germany a couple of weeks ago, and it got there fine. And that shipping rate to Germany was right under $30, which I thought was pretty decent.
Yeah.
So when you compare, if you're buying my $50 book and you're paying $30 to $35 to get it to you, so that's $85. There are comparable books on Kickstarter right now where the book costs $125.
Yeah.
There's a Star Wars book that some guys in London are doing right now, which is a beautiful looking book. But I think the cheapest one you can buy is $125. So there's I'm hoping that I bring enough value to the proposition to where that extra shipping charge isn't, this is something that customers are willing to deal with. I know there's a bit of a stigma. It was like, oh my God, that's a lot of shipping costs. But if you can say, okay, well, maybe I'm paying $75 for the book and $10 shipping, would you do that? Well, it's kind of what you're doing here.
Yeah. But
it's not just because it's all lumped in on the shipping, people, get a little antsy. I wish there was a good answer to that. But I am not a team of folks. I am one guy in Texas who has a very loving wife who chips in when I get 1,000 books dropped off on my porch.
I think for the people, definitely if you're in the Netherlands or Belgium, just go to your Big Bad Toy Store for volume 2. For me, it came out to something of $80 in total. So,
and was it worth it?
Definitely.
Okay.
Because I messaged you. I was like,
right, I know.
How can I get this?
Yeah.
And you were like, yeah, check.
But I want you to tell them that it's worth it.
Yeah. So no, definitely. I love it. Not that I mean, it definitely sparked some interesting stuff for future videos. But you go all the way. You go from the earliest toys up to newer stuff from just a couple of years ago that didn't get produced.
Right.
And that was one of my next questions. Do you just have an overall interest in anything toy producing related when they're not getting to the shelves? Or because I mean, usually you're I like Turtles, I like Master of the Universe and all the other stuff. Okay, if it looks cool, but you can really get attached to something and write about it. So
yeah, I mean, it's everything was fair game. The only thing that I would keep looking at would be, for the first 2 books, it was all boys action. So, I mean, there's really just action figures. That's what I know. That's what I grew up with. Book 3, the one I'm working on, I don't want to promise this, but it's probably going to be the first book that has a girls line in it.
Ooh.
Because I've been working to get a girls line into it. Because folks have asked, so why don't you have a girls line in here? I was like, well, it's hard to, I'm trying to cater to a specific demographic here. But I was able to find, instances of a girls action line, that was put out there, but didn't do well, and never got off the ground. So I was compelled to investigate, and came up with some fairly compelling stuff. So I'm going to try to get it in the book. But yeah, I think this, the third book, I think starts, the first line I talk about is 1980. The last line I talk about is 2013. Okay. So only 7 years ago, as it stands right now. And I think those two are pretty much locked in. That's the way. Everything else will fall in between.
Now, I know you're focusing on unproduced toys, but are there any produced toy lines that you wish weren't?
Which weren't produced?
That you wish weren't? Yeah.
I imagine there's some lines that some toy companies wish they didn't produce, for sure. I mean, it's interesting because, there's a line that I'm writing about in volume 3 that was kind of not pursued because another license came into the company and they ended up making the toys based on this license, which I will tell you what it was. It was Congo.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And who at Kenner wants to take that one back? I imagine there are a few. As a toy line, it didn't do very well, and it wasn't the greatest looking line.
But a lot of those Kenner mid 90s movie tie-in toys were just like not hitting it out the ballpark.
Yeah. I mean, they had
Robin Hood, and
they were having their struggles, which is why everyone said, well, can we do something with Star Wars? And then 95 comes and everything's better.
Now, have you ever thought about like covering unproduced like Kickstarters for toys, like a really cool idea, but it never got funded?
The last chapter in the second book is a Kickstarter.
Okay.
Yeah, I talked to
Way to do your research, Craig.
the guys at Warpo.
Okay.
Who did the Cthulhu line, the Legends of Cthulhu.
Okay.
So they did a first series of that, and then but they had a second series planned, and then they also did the Don't Cuddle the Krampus. Yeah, there it is.
Okay.
Which was a stuffed toy that was basically half Krampus, half My Pet Monster.
Nice.
And that was a Kickstarter that failed.
Yeah.
It only came like $3,000 short. It was really terrible for those guys.
I'm gonna have to go up to Dallas Vintage Toys and pick up that copy. Hopefully, there's still some more there this week.
So after the Krampus failed, they were still going to pursue the second series of Legends of Cthulhu, but when they ran the numbers, they couldn't make it work. They were going to have a certain level of backers, a certain number of backers at a certain level, and they just didn't have the confidence that they would get it. So they ended up scrapping it, but they had done work on it and they were going to do it. So yeah, that was one of the Kickstarters I knew that I had personal interest in because they were one of the first guys that actually took the idea of retro figures and did them right. Those first series of Cthulhu figures were amazing. They looked like they jumped right out of 1984 or 1983 or even before. They go so well with later Star Wars figures. You could almost, blend them in. and then of course Reaction took off and
Yeah,
a whole
did
other thing.
theirs. Right.
But those guys did a really good job on that whole line. And I found some people that I talked to the guys in the company. I talked to some third-party people that worked on the line for them. They revealed a few other things they were actually looking for, because it's kind of an Indiana Jones type story. There's a professor character, and he was going to research the volcano and Cthulhu and all this stuff. And they were going to do a biplane. They were trying to source a biplane that would work with, something that that was pre-done by another company, maybe, that they could actually source and just get the molding for, so they wouldn't have to, tool up a brand new biplane, something maybe that exists over in China that they could modify, but they never could find anything to scale. And then it ended up, not happening anyway. So.
Okay. Perhaps now is a good time to just explain how you stumbled into actually creating the book, because that's kind of an interesting story. You've been a journalist for the past 30 years, and
almost 30 years.
Yeah.
So back in, I'll tell the whole story. I'll try to get through it as fast as I can. Back in 2008, I started a guitar blog called What's That Dude Play? And it was all about, trying to find professionals, talk about their guitar rigs, that sort of thing, which is awesome if the professionals know you. But starting a greenfield type project like that you were persona non grata. No one would give you the time of day. So I kept the name because I liked it, and my wife came up with it, so I wasn't going to change it. But I started latching on to the boutique effects pedal market, where you had a lot of these guys making overdrives and distortion pedals and that sort of thing in their garage, and trying to sell a handful of them on eBay or what have you. So I got that blog lasted for 4 years, and it got a lot of traffic, and slowly but surely I did get to talk to professionals about their guitar rigs and that sort of thing, and do Q&As and what have you. In 2012, I decided I wasn't going to do it anymore. My day job, I had increasingly I had increased amount of time that my day job was impacting what I could do on the side. So I said, okay, I'm not going to do this anymore. But my wife came to me and said, maybe we could figure out a way where we could still do it. You just wouldn't have to do it every day like a blog. And so we came up with the idea. This is right when digital magazines were coming into vogue, to where, you could go on the internet and flip through a flip book and zoom in and zoom out, and everything was interactive. And so I was like, well, maybe we could do one of those, and we do it as a quarterly. That way I wouldn't have to work on it constantly. So we did that. We changed What's That Dude Play to a magazine called Gearphoria, which still exists. I did that as a quarterly for the first year and got really good response. So excited as I was that I had built this template for this magazine from the ground up, I said, I'm going to start another magazine, and I'm going to put them in between the Gearphorias and use this same template. So I said, what could it be about? What could it be about? Well, what am I into? What am I into? And I went through a couple of things. It's like, well, there's, as of 2011, there were no more toy magazines, because that's when Toy Fair went away. And so I was like, we could do a toy magazine. So, okay, let's do a toy magazine. Hey, you know what? I still got a name for it, because I kept the Little Plastic Men domain from when I was a retailer in the early 2000s. So I said, well, let's call it Little Plastic Men. It's perfect. Great. So we started. For the year of 2014, I did the 4 issues of Little Plastic Men. And in each issue, there was a column called Prototypically Unproductive, which was all about unproduced toys. So we did Sectors Series 2. We did Earthworm Jim Series 2. We did the Fall of Soda toys. And there was one more that's not coming to me. Maybe it was Palisades Sesame Street.
Yeah.
And I went out and I talked to the guy. I knew some of the guys still from retail days and just from hanging, just from staying in touch. And so we talked to him about it, ran these little columns. It was nice. It's a cool little feature. But at the end of the day, my mistake with Little Plastic Men, the magazine, was that I made it just like Gear for You in that it was going to be free to read online and any revenues would come from ads. Well, that works great for guitars, but it don't work for toys anymore because none of these toy companies have ad budgets. Because once the magazines went away, they got rid of them. So I was basically doing this for no money. I was doing it total passion project. So at the end of the year, I decided, well, I can't keep doing it like this. So either we full on switch everything up and make it a pay thing to where you would pay $10, $15 a year for the 4 issues, which would mean, redoing the website. And back then it wasn't quite as easy as it was now to, put a pay window up and all this stuff. So I was like, okay, well, I'll just say goodbye and we'll call it a day. And it was one of those things where you never hear about anybody. You never hear from anybody until you try to take something away from them.
Okay, yeah.
Well, when I told everybody this was the last Little Plastic Men magazine, whoa, they came out of the woodwork. It's like, what are you doing? No, you got to keep going. I was like, well, there's nothing in it for me. And I can't, this is taxing. It's not as easy as it looks. Because I was coming up with original material. I was going to interviewing sculptors. I was talking with, it was, kind of the same thing I was doing with the books, except just on a more limited basis. And we're talking about everything. We weren't necessarily talking about unproduced stuff. So I even got a call from a guy in New Jersey. I was on the phone with him for 2 hours talking this guy off a ledge, it seemed like. I was like, man, he's like, he was trying to give me all these ideas to monetize it. And I was like, at the end of the day, I just can't do it anymore. So that was humbling. I really loved hearing from everybody. And so I said, okay, I'll do one more issue. I'll make it all unproduced toys just because that's what everyone seemed to like. They
were specifically coming to you about that?
Yeah.
That was constantly coming back.
We really love this unproduced thing, blah, blah, blah. So, and now we get word of mouth just from friends who would read it, here in Texas. It's like, man, that was a pretty cool story you wrote about. I didn't know that about, sectors or whatever. So I'm like, okay, so I'll do one more. And when I started poking around really deeply on the internet into the unproduced toy thing, I was like, man, because there's a lot of this material out there. I don't even know how. This, and some of it really deserves to be more than a PDF on the internet. So I was like, someone should really write a book on this. This is really interesting stuff. And so this was the, like November of 2014. So February 2015, I went to Toy Fair, still on my media credentials because they were still active, even though I was shutting down the magazine. And I dummied up 20 pages of what a book might look like on an iPad. And I went around to all my toy contacts and basically showed it to them and asked them to talk me out of doing it. So I took it to Randy at NECA. I took it to, Brian Flynn at Super 7. I took it to, the guys at Mezco. I took it to Carl Aroni and his group at Playmates. I took it to everyone I could, anybody who would let me show it to them. And the response was overwhelming. They were very excited about it and wanted to know, what they could do to help, which was kind of shocking when you think about, you're trying to get these companies to basically talk about their failures.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But there comes a time when, a lot of these things are so far in the past now, the sting is worn off, or even those people who were involved with it at the time aren't even with the company anymore. So, so I came home to my wife and said, hey, looks like I'm writing a book. And that started it. And then we took it to, it took me about 2 years off and on. We took it to Toy Fair. We took it to Kickstarter in February of 2017 and got funded like on the last day for volume 1. And that started the whole thing. And, I called it volume 1 because I didn't want people to think, not because I intended to do any more, but because I didn't want people to think that this was all of it.
Yeah.
This is the totally
it was definitive.
Yeah. This was not the definitive thing. This is a sample. So so immediately, once people started getting it in their hands after the Kickstarter, they were like, "Where's volume 2? Where's volume? This is called volume 1. Where's volume 2?" So, that's what basically egged me on to do another one and another one. Now that I'm doing 3. So yeah, that's how it all started.
I guess on that topic, do you think there is a finish line when it comes to these stories?
No,
Oh.
not at all. I could do 10 of these books. I won't, but I could. There's
and then you work on it for 2 years, and
off and on 2 years,
and then you release it and you wait for like the feedback.
Sure.
Because like when we do a YouTube video, you make it in 1 or 2 weeks, you get it out there, and instantly you see the comments pop up. How is it for a book to get released like that and hear the feedback or get called in to do interviews about it? Was it instantly successful for you, or?
Yeah, there was nothing like when I was when the first book was being produced. I got a call from the guy that manages the production for me, and says, "We're going to send you the proof copies. Where are you going to be?" And I was actually in Nashville, Tennessee, because I was going to be going to a trade show for the music magazine.
Yeah.
And I said, "I'm in Nashville." He goes, "Okay, we'll overnight him. What's your address? Where are you staying?" So I got him, and I was sitting in like a lobby of the place we were staying, and this FedEx box in front of me, and I opened it up, and there were like 3 copies of this book that I'd worked 2 years on.
Yeah.
And I picked it up and I ripped open they were cellophane. So I ripped open the cellophane, and guys, I'll tell you, man, there is nothing quite like that feeling to have the physical embodiment of something you poured 2 years of your guts into, and then you're holding it in your freaking hand. And I flipped through it, and I immediately saw all the warts. I was like, oh, I should have. That's a design issue. That should have never done. I should have, but my wife was over my shoulder. She was crying, and I was just like, she goes, "It's beautiful. It's beautiful." And to myself, I was going, "Man, this really turned out nice." Because that was another goal. That was another key. I wanted this book to be something a collector would be proud to have in their collection.
Mm-hmm.
That's why there's no paperback. That's why there's no PD. That's why there's no ebook. That's why there's no PDF. I want this to be a part of your collection, and I think I succeeded.
I kind of equate it to having children, right? You put a lot of work into it, and then you start noticing all the blemishes afterwards.
Yeah. Oh no, the first book, it was like, there were some issues, but it was too late to fix them. So we are gonna fix them this time. It's nothing glaring. There's no like factual or nothing like bad factual. There's some design choices that were a little funky, and there are I found 1 or 2 typos. It's like, oh, that's unfortunate. But we'll get those fixed.
I think I saw like John Riggs do a review of it. Like he backed the Kickstarter and he showed it, and I was like, I want the book, but I was too late for the Kickstarter.
He didn't back the Kickstarter.
Okay.
Riggs in Washington, where he lives. I was at the since renamed, but at the time it was the Washington State Toy and Geek Festival or something like that.
Yeah.
That was in near Tacoma.
Yeah. Well, it's probably like a video from 3 years ago, so I
Yeah,
don't remember all the details,
Yeah, he drove down from Seattle and came, and I was in the line it was me and Mark Bellamo, who's written a lot of nice books on G.I. Joe and Transform, a lot of price guide stuff. Great guy. And then Jordan Hembrough was the toy hunter, was beside him. And Jordan had written the foreword for my book.
Okay.
And so that was like the only opportunity to get like both of us to sign the book, which I think Riggs did. And he confessed, he goes, I'm not really a toy guy, but I'm a video game guy, but you're here and Jordan's here and this book looks awesome. So can I have one? And so we went down to Jordan and got him to sign like 10 of them. And then I signed them too. So we just have them for, if people wanted to sign copy. I don't think we even charged anymore. It's just like, if you wanted to sign copy, you could have a signed copy. There's only 10 of them, or whatever. But yeah, that was very cool to see, guys on YouTube pop up and flip through the book. There's even a French review.
Yeah.
It's all in French. And the guy is so excited. And I was like, man, it sounds like he's being positive. I don't speak French.
Good. Yeah.
But, so it's, so it's really cool to have something, like I said, you've worked on for so long, be, for the most part, universally accepted and given the thumbs up. So yeah, it's a wonderful feeling.
Oh, there's a couple of guys in the chat excited about it. Like, are there any plans to release the book internationally through a publisher? My buddy Empire Toys, he just popped up in the comments as well that apparently when you ship it to the UK, there's no taxes on it because it's a book, but I'm not sure about that. So yeah, Daniel also asks, like he says, it's an awesome story how the book came together and where you can get one of those books. And Tarf asks if there are any plans to reprint the first volume, maybe get those couple of spelling errors out there. And are you going to reprint that one? Yeah, we are. A lot of it is contingent on how well Volume 3 does at Kickstarter. If it performs like we expect it to, or at least like the first two did, then we're going to try to use that to go ahead and print Volume 3 as well as Volume 1 reprint. Either we do it that way or we go to Kickstarter for the reprint of Volume 1 separately. But we are going to reprint it. There's just too many people now who missed out. Problem, I need the first one. So. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you're not alone, man. You're not alone. I mean, I'll back Volume 3, but I want that first one as well. You mean this one? Yeah. The problem with Kickstarter, and allow me to rant just for a little bit. And I've tried to get them to change this, but it's not in their interest to change it, so they won't. When you put up a Kickstarter like mine, and basically I'm selling one product. I'm selling a $50 book or a $60 book or whatever. When I sell that in the States, it's $60 plus $8 shipping, so $68. That entire sum goes to the Kickstarter goal cash. When I sell a book to Germany or Belgium or wherever, that's $60 plus almost another $60. Yeah. And that 120 goes to the goal cash. Oh, really? So they don't break the shipping out. So the more books I sell overseas with higher shipping costs, the faster I get to my goal cash, but the less actual cash I have to produce the books. Yeah. Because that money is for shipping. Yeah. And I've pleaded with Kickstarter, can you please break that out and make the goal just the product money and not but it's not in their interest because they want people to reach their goals because they get their cut that way. Yeah. Yeah. So it's a bit of a pain in the butt because it makes it, I have to guess how many international people are going to buy this book. And then I have to guess, and that makes me want to set my goal higher. And then that jeopardizes me not reaching my goal. Mm-hmm.
So I made a colossal mistake with the first book. I charged everybody who backed that book internationally a flat $18 to ship that around the world.
Mm.
That was a mistake.
Yikes.
So I had about 40 people from Australia buy that book.
Okay.
And it cost me $75 to ship that book to Australia.
Yeah.
So 75 minus 18. I'm not a good math guy, but that's
like a book.
So I had to eat a ton of international shipping on that first book. So the first book didn't make any money. The first book lost money because of my silliness, thinking that I could ship a 4-pound box anywhere in the world for $20. You cannot. Sorry. So I didn't make that mistake with the second book, and I lost some people because of it. Because I put in the description of the Kickstarter, right, and not even towards the bottom. It was like in the middle. I said, everybody, please, may I have your attention? Internet, in all caps, international shipping sucks, and I can't do anything about it because I am just me. So this is what it costs. It may be a few dollars over what it actually costs because I have to go buy boxes from Uline. I got to buy bubble wrap. I got to buy tape. I hadn't charged anything for my time because me and my wife boxed all of those books up together and sent them out ourselves. We didn't have any procurement people. We didn't have any fulfillment people. It was us. So, but because Kickstarter does that with their shipping costs, it kind of artificially inflates you towards your goal. And so if I do a Kickstarter, say for the reprint of Volume 1, and I have a ton of international people show up because they want Volume 1, that means, and if I set it like a modest, like 10 grand, just to get some money to help, like I said, to get it printed and brought over. If I get too many international people, you're talking maybe 40% of that 10 grand could be shipping costs, which means I only really had 6 grand to help get the book printed and back over here. And I can't do 10,000. I can't do 1,000 books at 6 grand.
Yeah.
So, it's not as cut and dried as a lot of people think it is. And I wish it was easier, but it's not. To answer the question about a publisher, I've discussed with publishers reprinting Volume 1, both with a startup publisher who's actually someone I consider a friend, and a pretty big publisher out of France. Neither one of those deals made it through, mainly because of 2 things. One, the one deal was just bad. It wasn't going to give me any reimbursement for my work. It was really just going to get the book into different markets, but I wasn't going to see anything for it. The other deal would have been better, but basically there is a, let's just say, gray area about the ownership of certain things that appear in my book.
Oh.
Technically, those prototypes and drawings and such still belong to the companies that where they were made. Some of that's not a problem because the companies don't exist anymore. But there are a few major companies that still exist. So when the big publisher came to me and goes, oh yeah, all we'll need is, this, and all your clearances. Well, I didn't do clearances.
Yeah.
Because before we did the book, because the book would have never gotten made otherwise. So before I did the book, I talked to a ton of people, everybody I could who had published with a publisher or with Kickstarter or with whoever. And I asked one very simple question. I said, is it better to ask for forgiveness or permission? And the answer was universal. It's forgiveness every time. Because if I went to a toy company and said, hey, I need permissions on these 50 things that I want to put in this book, all these unproduced things, these drawings, these prototypes, whatever. It would have landed on some lawyer's desk inside the company, and it would have sat there for a very long time. And then when you finally press them on it, the answer is no.
Yeah.
Because that's the easy answer. There's no work. They don't have to do any work if the answer is no. And then what do? Well, I'm stuck. So
But is there
I think Ed's going to ask for forgiveness when he steals the content of your books to make YouTube videos.
Sadly, he wouldn't be the first.
I have asked you about stuff, right?
Yeah.
If I figured out, like, when I figured out you were the source of some stuff, I did ask.
So it's a gray area. I mean, a lot of these prototypes are now, and these drawings are now in the hands of collectors. So, my argument is, well, why did you let this stuff go out the back door in the first place? If it's truly yours, why aren't you out trying to reclaim it right now? So, given those things, and
how far does it go back? Like, if they don't use it for a couple of years, do they still own all of it? Because they paid a sculptor or somebody creative to create it. Is it theirs, or is it the sculptor's, sort of?
Well, also,
it all depends.
When you think about an IP like Toxic Avenger, Toxic Crusader, is it Playmates? Is it Trauma? Who ultimately gets to claim that?
Yeah, nobody's doing anything with it,
Yeah. So, it was one of the things where, it killed the international deal with because they were like, no clearances. We can't publish without clearances. And I said, well, I'm just one guy in Texas. I said, if you're a big company, go out and get the clearances. You've got to have some interns there. Have them go get the clearances, and we'll do this book together. But never happened. So as far as where you can get the book right now, Big Bad Toy Store has Volume 2 in stock. I still have Volume 2s that I'm happy to ship directly. So you can go to my Facebook page, which is facebook.com/Toys That Time Forgot, all run together. And there's a pin post that'll let you know how best to get a copy direct from me.
Yeah. Awesome.
Is that all the questions? There was one more.
I think so. Like, about how to get the books. Yeah. And then there's lots of people just going on that I'm just going to do my episodes reading from your book right from now on.
Like I said, there's been at least one instance where that was the case, not with you, with someone else, who did.
They were just reading.
He was telling a story about a certain thing that appeared in Volume 1, and he basically just recited. He would say, the story goes blah 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 blah. Well, the story was from Toys That Time Forgot Volume 1.
But
and
he didn't.
He represented the story he was telling as something he had discovered, which rubbed me the wrong way. And at the end of his video, he put up a copy of the book and said, if you would like to read more about this sort of thing, here's a book that I recommend. Well, why would they want to read more? You just told them exactly what's in my book. And he did use pictures, and he did source the pictures to the book and everything, but it's still just, it wasn't quite. He should have said in the story he was telling, according to Toys That Time Forgot, blah, blah, blah. I would have felt better about it then. Or even if he would have reached out to me, it's not like I'm hiding. I'm on I'm on social media. Reached out to me beforehand and said, hey, I want to do this thing with your book. How best do I do the sourcing or whatever? I just happened to find it on, I don't know if someone pointed it out to me and I was just like, oh, well. So I was bad for a little bit, but I got over it.
Yeah. I mean, I think, like, because I knew about the book, and then I started doing the videos, and they did pretty well. So I continued doing them, and I ended up popping onto like interviews you did. And I remember like you were like pretty like okay with me doing those type of videos.
I have
So I
no
reached
problem.
out to you,
I mean,
and
I have
we were
no
talking about like the Bucky O'Hare stuff that got unproduced.
right. I
And
mean,
you like lent me like a PDF of that thing, but I was
yeah,
like, I'm not gonna pop it on because like nobody would have an incentive to buy the book that like show everything that's in it, you know?
yeah.
So
Well,
it's still like on one of my want lists to make, but I need to find some people that have extra information or something to do it like that. But yeah, it's never my intent to just, you know, like read from the book, you
yeah,
know.
no, and I don't think it is. And I enjoy your unproduced toy videos, and I don't pretend to have any sort of iron grip over the whole unproduced world of toys. I mean, crap. Trust me, there's enough to go around.
You're suffocating us.
We in doing these first couple of books and the one that I'm doing now, you know, talking with all these different toy companies, all these different execs, all these, you know, people who work there, people who did work there, you know, it is fairly universal that we probably only see about 30% of what these companies actually work on ever hit toy shelves. Think about that for a second. 30%. That means 70% of someone's daily job is just, it's never seen. They work on it, they work their tails off on it, and it gets filed away or thrown in the trash, or it can be a very, very harsh, um, you know, way to make a living when say you're a concept artist or something like that, or even a model maker or whatever in one of these toy companies, and you pour, 3, 4, 6 months into, this one project. And right there, when it's time to greenlight it, they're like, nah, can't do it. And I imagine it's no different in places like Hollywood, or working on a show that you're going to do, or a movie or what have you, that, you're right up to the point to where, okay, hey, let's go. And they're like, no, don't have the money for it, or license crapped out, or the cartoon they were going to make or the movie they were going to make got canceled. So there's no point in doing the toys or whatever. And there are plenty of instances of that for sure. But
Yeah,
yeah,
I mean,
it can be extremely demoralizing.
yeah, you got to definitely have a strong sense of self if you're,
Yeah.
if you're constantly being told you're just not good enough.
Yeah.
I was doing a live stream with Tim Clark, I think a month ago, and he told me that as he was working on you also covered these toys, the Dark Crystal toys.
Yeah.
He was working on that for Hasbro or Aviva. He would also get asked to come in and sculpt stuff for G.I. Joe, but they would ask him, sculpt a leg or sculpt like an arm, and we'll use it because Hasbro didn't want any of the sculptors to own like a complete one in order to have the molds get out of the stuff that was actually. So that's like okay, you're a sculptor, but just give me legs.
Give me the leg.
It's so weird.
Yeah. And I think there was a bunch of G.I. Joe guys that just did portraits. They just did the heads.
Yeah.
And they would get, back in the day, you could get $4, $5, $6 for a head.
Really?
Yeah, that's pretty good. That's pretty good chunk of change. Not the case anymore, but back in the day, you could do well if you churn out a bunch of 1-to-1 heads. And I'm pretty sure that was all done. The heads weren't done 1-to-1; they were done a little bigger. I'm just thinking of something else. But yeah, I mean, for a lot of these sculptors, that'd take nothing to do a portrait. Just done. Yeah. Mail it to them. Where's my check?
That's awesome. Pretty cool.
Yeah.
Have you ever thought about like doing like your own type of show or getting into anything like that, like Toys That Made Us, but with your take on it, with what you do?
I can't talk about that. Next.
Oh. Spicy.
Craig, you're on to something. Kneel into it.
No, it has its appeal,
It does.
and I have taken a meeting about that before, but there's a lot of competition out there right now, especially in the toy space. I mean, a lot of people would say that, well, now's the time to do it because there's, obviously there's some popularity there. Let's get it going, blah, blah, blah. And others are saying, oh, it looks a little crowded right now. Maybe we need to step back and all this stuff. And, I'm pretty good friends with Brian Volkweis, the guy that does the Toys That Made Us and A Toy Store Near You, which, by the way, the Toy Store Near You, the second season starts on Christmas Day. And my book is prominently featured in the episode 8 or something like that.
Nice.
When they're at the Bat Cave. If you go look at the trailer that's out right now, they used the book in it a couple of times. It was like, hey, there's my book. That was kind of
awesome.
We have a local shops that's going to be on that.
Right. A show based on my books would run into the same problem as far as clearances is concerned. Right. We would have to get now we wouldn't be it wouldn't be I don't think as difficult coming at these companies as, number one, now an established book series, number two, attached to a production team who can say, okay, yeah, we're going to make this show, and your products, are going to get mentioned. Your company is going to get mentioned. So I think there could be a little more incentive for
like Toy Hunter had unproduced toys featured, but those were LJN, those were Kenner toys, obviously.
Yeah,
but then again, Kenner toys got popped into Hasbro, right?
Yeah. So it wouldn't be totally foreign to have a show based solely on that.
Yeah.
I don't think we would run into clearance issues when it came to that sort of thing. But I don't know at the same time. I mean, we'll see if something ever gets going on it, then we will definitely be crossing that bridge. So I'd love to do it, but it's just a matter of, we've got right now logistics issues because of COVID. I'm in Texas. The team that would likely do it would be on the West Coast or the East Coast. So there would be some.
Yeah,
we would do as much as we could like this, but there would be a time where we'd have to all be in the same room, putting something together. So not out of the question, but I don't want to get tied up in something like that while I'm still trying to produce quality books. Let's put it that way.
Sure. Okay. That's awesome.
We have some more questions. Apparently, there's the Toys That Time Forgot website, but it looks like a vintage store. So that's not attached to you, is it?
Okay. The toy store in Canal Fulton, Ohio is called The Toys Time Forgot.
Okay, yeah.
My book series is Toys That Time Forgot.
Okay.
So they're very close. And I've had plenty of crossover where people have tried to sell me used toys because they think I'm a store. But
send them our way.
If you're ever in Canal Fulton, by the way, stop into that store. It's amazing.
Okay.
I've been there before. But yeah, no, the book itself doesn't have its own website. I never set one up. I think having to deal with the guitar website and some other stuff, just, as long as I could live without having the book have its own website, I was going to keep going with that. I do own toysthattimeforgot.com.
Yeah.
And I also own unproducedtoys.com, but I haven't got anything with them.
Empire Toys asks if there's any Power Rangers mentioned in the books.
There are no Power Rangers mentioned in the books.
Okay, there we go.
But I have no doubt there is unproduced Power Ranger stuff. There
I
has
think
to be.
there's like some dolls, like
Yeah,
actual like Kimberly and Trini. Is she
yeah.
called
A
Trini?
good rule of thumb: if you ever see a series 1 of anything and you never see a series 2, trust me, there is something out there that's series 2,
Okay.
because the way the toy industry works with the lead times that are necessary to get products to shelves. If Series 1 is out, Series 2 is being actively worked on, because they have to do that regardless. That even if they don't know if Series 1 is going to be a success,
Yeah.
it's just the
There's
way.
always new stuff on the table
It's just the way
in
the
order for it to
calendar falls.
continue.
Yeah, they have to. There's at least drawings, if not preliminary sculptures. So if you ever saw something that was, oh, that only had 1 year and then it went away, there's a really good bet there's some unproduced concepts for a second year, sometimes a third year, depending on how much um, belief they had in the property.
You've also worked on. You've also worked into the books toys based on video games. Have you ever thought about talking about unproduced games? The question that also pops up. There's any canceled or unreleased games making it into your books, or is that too far out of your comfort zone?
Well, no. I will say that the original plan to follow Volume 3 was going to be a book about unproduced point-and-click adventure games from the 80s, 90s, and 2000s.
Sierra stuff, or
Sierra, Lucasfilm, everybody else. It was called. It was going to be called Mist Adventures.
oh yeah,
I did a ton of work on it. A lot of interviews. A lot of digging around. I came up with some really compelling stuff, and then basically got told that Disney would have my nuts if I did it.
Hey.
oh, yikes!
So I stopped working on it. It's really a shame too, because it was going to be pretty cool. So I think what will end up happening with that, I still want to do it, but it's not necessarily something I want to do and then know that it can never be released. But I think what I will end up doing is doing a fairly extensive outline of what I want to do. I now know enough people inside the Disney machine that I can kind of feed it to them and say, hey, how much is this going to, how many feathers is this going to ruffle? You know, is there any way that we could put this through the gatekeepers and see if we can't see if they're just going to say there's no way in hell he can do this, or can we work together and get something done? I mean, I never thought, I've been able to pull some things off in my life that I never thought was possible. One of the things that I'm really, really proud of that not a lot of people know, because it was hidden on What's That Dude Play towards the end of its run, is that I got to interview Dr. Teeth and the Electric Mayhem.
What?
It was I went through Disney and I told them what I wanted to do, and they said, okay. And so it was prior to that first reboot Muppet movie coming out with Jason Segel. And I interviewed Dr. Teeth and Electric Mayhem. Now, I didn't do it in person, but I did it with the players who play those characters. And it ended up being a Q&A that we worked into the website. And then I actually republished it in the very first issue of Gearphoria, because one of the puppeteers had just passed away. So I did it as a kind of commemorative thing to his memory. But yeah, I mean, at the time, What's That Dude Play was still, I mean, it never got to be this huge website. So the fact that I was able to pull that off, it was just amazing to me. and it read so funny. It was so funny. And, I got to ask them their influences, blah, 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 all the stuff you would ask a classic rock band. It was really, really cool. So, that kind of gave me hope to where, never say never. Sometimes you can pull some stuff out. Now, had I come up with this book prior to the Disney acquisition, I probably could have done it. It probably would have been a lot easier. But to do and then someone said, why don't you just do the book without Lucasfilm stuff in it, without LucasArts stuff in it? I said, well, that's half the book. I mean,
a lot of it. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, they were, integral in that whole point and click genre, adventure genre. So I can't leave them out. There was a book done in 2008 that's kind of hard to find now, but it was called Rogue Leaders.
Yeah.
And it was all about the history of LucasArts. And it was sanctioned by Lucas because he wrote the foreword to it. And in that book, they mentioned some of the unproduced stuff. You remember it was several years ago when all of these logos from all these Star Wars games that were never done popped up online. I mean, there was like a dozen of them. Star Wars 1313 and all these other. That came once that book hit, those because those logos were in that book.
That information came out to the public.
Yeah. So it kind of was made public. And so the book mentions some of the unproduced games, but it doesn't really show anything from them. Well, I have, information about those games, not in the book, and I have visuals. So would really love to do it. But it's just a matter of, will I be able to? I think I've convinced myself I'm at least going to try and see how hard the clapback would be.
I would gobble it up. I love those point and click adventure games. I actually tuned into I think Ron Gilbert was did like a live stream that had a little bit of a
the 30th anniversary of Monkey Island. Yeah.
I tuned into that.
I had dinner with Ron in Seattle a couple of years ago.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah, it was. I mean, I had lunch with Al Lowe that day. I had dinner with Ron Gilbert. I had drinks with John Knowles. I mean, it was. We were up there, and it was during the time I went to the that Washington Geek Festival that I met Riggs at. We stayed up there for like 5 days, and I was doing all these interviews. I was doing the signing for the book for Volume 1, but I was doing all these interviews for the adventure book, and because that's basically Sierra disbanded up in Washington, and so a lot of the guys didn't move very far away, and some of them are still in gaming. Al Lowe still does freelancing gaming. John Knowles works for Xbox. Gilbert still does his own thing. He just did that Thimbleweed Park game that a lot of people were excited about. So, man, I'd love to do it. It's just a matter of being able to pull it off and Disney saying, yeah, sure, why not?
Yeah, if you need help pushing it through, just feel free to name drop me. I think it'll get you pretty far.
Yeah, man. I appreciate it.
Andy's Toys and Models asks if it's mentioned before or not, but what is Blake's favorite unproduced toy line?
Do
you have a favorite? Can you pick one?
We'll stick with what's been published because it may be another one come Volume 3. But the one line that I was extremely excited to find out ever existed was Krull. Because I love that movie as a kid. It was just the right amount of cheese but it was the Star Wars meets Sword and Sorcery meets the blend was so wonderfully bad but wonderful all the same. Had a iconic weapon. I mean, it was so toyetic, to borrow Bernie Loomis's famous phrase. You had Cyclops and a cool weapon and these stormtrooper-like guys, and there was freaking horses that spit fire from their hooves, and a villain that was masked by a bunch of jelly on the lens because they ran out of money and couldn't finish his costume or whatever. But it had all the aspects of being a really cool toy line, and the fact that that never happened, I was always curious about that, because that was during, Empire Strikes or Return of the Jedi was coming out the same year, and toys were peaking.
Mm-hmm.
Well, turns out there was a toy line being made for it, but the company who was doing it, hit its own problems with financial straits and ended up getting bought by Hasbro. But the day that I held a Kroll, hard copy prototype figure in my hand was a day that I never thought would ever come, and there he was in my hand. And I was like, this is amazing. It's like, tell me more. And so I found out that there were basically two sculptors that worked on the line that were freelance from Knickerbocker was the company, by the way. Freelance from Knickerbocker. One of them sadly passed away relatively young. He was a military miniatures sculptor. He did a lot but he worked with lead a lot.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
And that's basically what did him in.
Hmm.
The other one was a known sculptor. He also worked with miniatures, but he didn't work with lead as much. And he was still alive and living in Connecticut. So I went up and visited him, and we sat down. We talked. We talked about what he remembered about Kroll. There were 10 figures sculpted for that line, done, including one of the horses. Apparently, they basically turned them into Knickerbocker, got their paycheck, and forgot all about it because it was just another job to them, right?
Okay.
But the story goes, and you can read it in volume 1 if you have volume 1, that once they shut down, they said they decided they weren't going to go through with the line, and they immediately almost got bought by Hasbro. So all the vault that they had of this kind of stuff transferred to Hasbro. The story goes that a few years down the road, one of the guy that led the sculpting department at Hasbro at the time was just going through a bunch of old stuff in the archives and came across these Kroll figures and really thought they were done very, very well. The portraits on them were just dead on. And if you see the one figure that I had that we were able to find was Torquil, which was Alan Armstrong's character. He was like the main thief that joins Colwyn when they go to look for the Black Fortress. He said these were really well done. He goes, so he made it a point to try to figure out who sculpted them. And so he found the one gentleman, reached out to him and said, hey, would you be interested in doing a little work for us every once in a while? And he's like, well, sure. He goes, what do you, he goes, well, come down to New York and we'll talk about it. So he came down, they did an interview, and the sculptor actually became one of the more prolific sculptors of portraits for G.I. Joe, Real American Hero. And he basically got that job because this guy stumbled across these Kroll figures. So that's the story I tell in the book.
Mm-hmm.
On top of the fact that, hey, there were Kroll toys, there's a cool little story that goes along with this. And you may have not gotten the same G.I. Joe figures that you did get had not this guy stumbled across these Kroll figures in the archives. So that's the kind of stuff that's just like,
oh yeah, wow,
Cool, awesome.
So Kroll's the answer. And they were going to do they were going to do the Widow of the Web playset. They were going to do, they had like a Nerf type glaive they were going to do.
Yeah, because I mean that weapon they need.
Yeah,
that would have been like role playing toy number 1 that year probably.
And the figures themselves, they were going to put out. I did have a photograph of the 4-inch version of the Beast, which of course was out of scale because he was gigantic or whatever. But we did find a photograph of the actual sculpt of the 4-inch version of the Beast. So the only
Do
two
you,
sculpts that I ever saw. I saw
do
some
you
drawings.
collect any prototypes yourself, or?
Yeah, that's the question I get a lot. Because how much of this stuff have you bought? Like, oh my God, you've seen all this stuff? How much do you own now? Is this all your stuff? No, I haven't bought any of it. Well, not true. Out of all the stuff I've seen, out of the 2 books that I've done so far, 3 now, but 2, mainly the 2, since I didn't do much traveling for the other one. I made 2 purchases for 3 figures.
Okay.
And those were Earthworm Jim figures. Because for whatever reason, I love Earthworm Jim. So I bought a painted hard copy of Evil Jim, which was Series 2 unproduced. I had the wax of Series 1 Clutch, which was a figure that Playmates invented for the line. It was not canon to Earthworm Jim at all. He's like a snail guy.
Yeah.
And I have a unpainted hard copy of Samurai Jim from Series 2. I don't know if you can see. You see that framed drawing back behind me?
Yes, sir.
Okay. That is unproduced, the unproduced drawing related to Copterhead Jim, unproduced from Series 2. I don't know if I can tilt it again. Oh, yeah, there we go. And the one on top is unproduced drawing of Extendo Arm Jim from Series 2.
That's cool.
So I have some art as well.
That's awesome.
And I have a drawing of a bigger drawing that it's not framed yet, and it's pencil. These are pencil on vellum, by the way, so they're original. I have a pencil on vellum of the Jim copter of the motorcycle that they were going to produce, that they were going to do, but never produced that either. So, and then since that time, I bought a hard copy of the Hamsternator, which was Series 2 unproduced, but he's actually still in the mold. He was never broken out. So I have this gigantic silicon mold with these pieces of the Hamsternator still intact and still with all the runoff that you would have to clip off in order to make the figure a hard copy.
Okay.
So I bought that earlier this year when it came for sale. But that's it. I haven't. I mean, one of the things I really wanted to establish, at least early on, was I'm not here for your stuff.
Yeah. Okay.
I want your story, and I want to take some photographs. And once a lot of these guys, because these guys get bombarded by collectors all the time.
I bet, yeah.
It's another reason where in these books that I did, I'd never put buy whatever it is I'm photographing or scanning from the collection of blah, blah, blah. I basically have asked these guys, I said, I don't want to attract any more attention to you than you want. So this is what I'll do. I won't put where this came from. If you would like, there's a thank you page in the back of the book. I'll put your name there. And if you don't want it there, I also will leave it out. So that's kind of been the modus operandi for sourcing people and what they have, because like I said, I don't want anybody waking up and have a dozen collectors in their front yard banging on the windows trying to get stuff. Not that collectors are a bad lot, but we do know that there are bad lots.
Yeah.
Out there.
They out there.
They out there. Yes, they are.
Oh man.
I didn't want that. I didn't want, anything I did to mess that up for whoever owns this stuff.
So we've passed like the hour and a half mark on our live stream. And yeah, we kind of like rounded up just around that time. But yeah, Blake, thanks so much for talking to us today.
Yeah,
it was amazing. It's nice to hear all the stories behind them, and it's great to hear that we'll be able to get a volume 3 around February. The Kickstarter is it's going to start for that.
February, March, Volume 3 Kickstarter. Hopefully we'll be able to get the book, and hopefully the book will be done around that time as well. That way we can get it proofed, laid out. It will be laid out, and then to the printers, and then hopefully back by, I think, late summer is usually the target. Because I mean, you never know. I just saw. Did anybody see the picture of the container ship that lost all its freaking containers this last week?
Oh,
No.
I didn't see that.
Not pictures. I've heard of it. I didn't see
Nightmare.
pictures.
That just my heart just fucking sank when I saw that. Just thinking that could be my books. Unfortunately, but apparently there are some toys that are being affected by it. But hopefully we'll get them back late summer. I can get them out, disseminated early fall, and then hopefully around the same time, if we can do them in tandem, we will do Volume 1 reprint at the same time.
They're already asking for a Volume 4. Ryan is like, I really want to know, will there be a Volume 4?
Not immediately. I'm going to step away from unproduced toys for a little bit. Basically, what I've said is, I promised after Volume 1 was a success, I promised to do 2 and 3, and then I was going to take a break. But at the same time, if Volume 3 is an overwhelming success, it'd be kind of hard to just walk away from these things as long as people still want them. So if Volume 3 gets the right push and the redo of Volume 1 gets the right push, then it may change my mind about Volume 4. Right now it's not in the cards. I have another book project that I'm trying to get off the ground, as well as I'm also working on an animated pilot that has nothing to do with toys. Something that I've been wanting to do for a long time. And this other book is still toy related, but not unproduced toy related. I've also been approached by some people who have been interested in possibly getting me to write a book about their certain subject matter that they're in control of, let's say.
Cool.
So there's a lot of moving parts. All of it could happen or none of it could happen. It's just a matter of
lots of projects.
No shortage of things going on.
That's awesome.
Got to keep busy during these increasingly strange times, right?
Mm-hmm.
So,
true.
NARC, what do you have coming up in the next couple of weeks, buddy?
Let's see. I'm working on 3 videos right now.
What?
Yeah,
3?
halfway done, all half done. So I was going to get something out Friday, but it didn't work out. So expect a video on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. So I'm doing that Goodwill series, 30 Days of Goodwill. So that will be next Friday. And then I have a toy hunt videos come out Monday, and then like a sponsorship video on Wednesday. So yeah. Nice. Get it out there.
What about the Grekster? All right, are you Grecking anyone this week?
Well, I just got Greked by my kids, so I'm going to teach them some internet etiquette. I don't know. Should I keep teasing people? I have the setup all ready to go for a YouTube video, and since we're right around the holidays, I still haven't told the story about how I got that sealed Turbo Man figure. I think that would be pretty timely. So stay tuned. Maybe that'll show up in your feed.
What about you, Ed?
I'm trying to finish a video on like TMNT food stuff, which I did film, and I just have to edit it, but I have too much work.
I know. Man.
And on Tuesday, I'm also appearing on Lil Kong Gaming's YouTube channel for a little live stream. But yeah, next week I'll upload like a decent video, hopefully. It should be happening soon. So yeah, I just need to take like a holiday from work, honestly. So yeah, that's pretty much it. And yeah, video should be coming back on my channel. And yeah, Blake, you're working on lots of stuff, but any last things you want to mention to all the people watching? Where can they find you on socials? And once more, that Kickstarter starts in February, right?
Yeah, that's the idea. So social media on Facebook, it's facebook.com/toys that time forgot, all run together. On Twitter, I am at Blake_E_Wright. And on Instagram, it is at Toys that Time Forgot, all run together. So volume 1 reprint coming next year, volume 3 coming next year, volume 2 is still available through Big Bad Toy Store or through me directly. I also still have my exclusive Toxic Avenger reaction figure available.
Awesome.
Last, it's addressed to Melvin Ferd, if you can see that.
Yeah, Melvin.
Trumbull, New Jersey. But I have my own colorway. It was exclusive to the Kickstarter. He is the slime variant, so he's translucent green.
Oh, that's awesome. Very cool.
Why do you have to show me that? Now I want that.
So these are still available.
Awesome.
It's $25 for the figure, $5 shipped. So $30 domestic, and it's $40 international.
Ooh, okay. It might be a nice Christmas present for me.
Yeah. So still got those. Working hard on volume 3. It's easy to say because it's the thing I'm working on right now, but it's my favorite one. Just because my goal in all this was to really show people something they had never seen before.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And gentlemen, I'm getting ready to show you a lot of stuff you have never seen before.
Well, you got me excited. So
it's
awesome.
Just, we did enough. I do, we still have the line extension stuff, where it's an established property then that just didn't have a third or fourth thing come out, but it was actually under development. But there's a lot of stuff in this one that died prior to getting out, and some of it is just crazy. There's at least one property that I'm going to talk about in this book that deserves its own book.
Oh,
wow.
Okay.
And I haven't talked myself out of not doing that either. Because it's so mind-boggling to me.
Okay.
And I hope everybody enjoys these books as much as I enjoy making them. Because if you look at the first book, I dedicated to my wife. The second book I dedicated to toy lovers everywhere.
Yeah.
This third book's just going to say, this one's for me.
There you go.
That's great, man.
Good.
So this is the one that has the most Blake in it, I think is the way to look at it. I really wanted to get like popular properties into the first books. Star Wars appears in both books that I've done so far, and wasn't slated to appear in the third book until about a week ago when something happened. But I still don't know if I'm going to do it just yet.
Okay.
But it's Star Wars, so you can't really ignore it. So who knows? Star Wars may make it in yet again. But I'm having a blast, and I've told my wife and told my friends over and over again, if something would have happened to where these books or the first book or any of these books couldn't have made it out for whatever reason, like it got shut down by a lawsuit or what have you, I would not regret a minute I've spent talking with people, learning their stories, meeting. I've come out of this with so many new friends. people who I'm not even covering, any toys they worked on, but I'm still, invited to their houses and we have dinner, and it's been an amazing ride, and it'll be a little sad after volume 3 to walk away from it, but we'll see.
Okay.
That's
Awesome.
what I got.
Awesome.
That's
Well,
awesome.
and then we're going to end the stream. So thanks so much, guys, for watching. And we'll see you in the next videos. Be sure to check out everybody's channel and Toys That Time Forgot. Blake Wright's books. Check him out. And we'll see you soon. Bye,
Bye, everyone.
Later.
Adios.